Hey everyone, and welcome back to OntarioCryptids. The last couple weeks I've made two mistakes. 2 weeks ago I uploaded the episode the night before, and I know some of you were pleasantly surprised to get the story out early. Last week I scheduled it the wrong time, the right day, but not at 11 a.m. So I had to go in and change it so that I could just release the story for you right away. Hopefully this week all goes well with the scheduling and I don't have any issues as far as scheduling the wrong day or the wrong time. I can tell you that I'm off my normal weekend schedule. Since earlier today, I've been trying to get a lot of stuff accomplished around here, and I'm now sitting down to tell these stories. All right, I'm going to stop chatting now so that we can get right to it. As you know, I'm always looking for great stories to be shared on this channel. So if you have a story you would like to share in a safe environment, then forward your encounter stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Today we have 3 stories from Reddit. So go grab yourself a beverage and get cozy on a couch or chair and sit back and relax. All right, so this first story takes place somewhere around Fort Worth, Texas, and the year is unknown. This is a much shortened version of my encounter, but still a little long to read. I was about 10 years old when my family moved into this quaint pink English cottage-style home built in the early 1920s in North Texas. I loved this little home and felt at home as soon as we moved in. I remember the day we were moving in. I felt random drafts of cool air. My mom always said that the house was old and therefore drafty. For some reason, I never felt alone in the house. Some of the rooms gave me an uneasy feeling, and I refused to be in certain rooms all by myself, like the sunroom or the basement. I could never explain why. It was just a chill in your spine sort of feeling. The rooms in this home were all completely separated. The front door opened to a living room with a sunroom to the left. You'd enter the dining room through a door that had a door to the kitchen and a door to the main hallway. The main hallway had 3 bedrooms on one side and a bathroom on each end. Each bathroom had 2 doors, one to the bedroom they were next to and one to the hallway. I slept in the middle room. Within a few days of living in this little house, my brother stopped sleeping with the lights off. He insisted on leaving all the lights in his room on because he said he'd hear someone at night. My parents brushed it off as a phase. I started sleeping with my closet door wide open and the lights on. Again, my parents thought it was a phase. At night, both me and my brother would hear small footsteps in the hallway and in our rooms as if someone was coming in to check on us. They'd always stop at the foot of our beds. We'd tell our parents, and my father would always say, "Old houses make strange noises." My mother became extremely depressed within a few months of living in this house. She'd tell my dad she felt as if she had lost a child. She had no idea why she struggled so much to get out of bed. Soon, she started hearing the footsteps in the hallway as well. Our family dog would bark in the hallway as if there was an intruder at random times of the day and night, and nothing would ever be there. The footsteps became louder, more obvious, and occurred more often. My mother would hear them during the day while me and my brother were at school and my father was at work. She called my father a few times, afraid somebody was in the house. She had called the police one time because she heard loud banging noises and footsteps while she was in the kitchen. No sign of any intruders or unexpected guests. My friends started refusing to spend the night because they'd say my house was creepy. I never took offense because I too thought it was creepy. One night, my father finally heard the footsteps as he was awoken up by my mother in the middle of the night. She shook my father awake. Brad! Brad! Do you hear that? Be quiet and listen. The dog started barking like she was ready to attack. Finally, he had heard the footsteps, and he told my mother, "Get the kids." He thought somebody had broken in, and he grabbed the metal baseball bat he always kept under the bed and began inspecting the house. He told me when he walked into the hallway he felt a sudden rush of air go past him like someone ran by him quickly. Nothing was there. He started hearing the footsteps again in the hallway all around him. He finally believed my mother that the house could be haunted. My brother and I were sound asleep, so he went back to bed and he and my mother stayed up all night, just listening and waiting. A few more weeks would pass without any encounters or instances, but we'd notice strange things throughout the house, like things going missing, electronic items not working properly, and the gas stove igniting itself. We'd blame it all on the little boy ghost that most loved to play pranks. We just had a strange feeling a young boy lived with us. More time passed with more strange occurrences. The hallway lights would turn off and on randomly, not flickering, just off, then on, then off, and on, off, back on, off, on. My parents assumed it was a simple electrical problem. The longer we ignored it and let it be, the more often it would happen or more severe. One night, around 2 a.m., it started turning on and off again. I also had a toy doorbell I had gotten from school for selling magazines on my wall at my bedroom door. I was obsessed with monkeys at the time, so the doorbell made a monkey sound. Yes, I was a weird little kid, okay? This doorbell would start ringing, or ooh-oohing, ah-ahing, in the middle of the night. I sat straight up in bed and screamed, "Mom! Dad!" My dad came running in and was just as freaked out as I was about the doorbell. No one was ringing it. The button wasn't stuck. He took the batteries out and told me everything was fine. Well, let me tell you, 20 minutes after we all went back to bed, that Mother F rang again and again. Ooh, ooh, ah, ah, ooh, ooh, ah, ah. I sat straight up and screamed again, and my dad had already reacted so quickly. He ripped that thing off the wall, wrapped it in a towel, and shoved the thing in my dresser drawer. He said, "We shouldn't hear it again." That effing thing, ooh, ooh, ah, ah, again, wrapped up in my dresser drawer. We heard that thing muffled and quiet, but we heard it. I have never seen my dad's eyes so wide open in my life, even to this day. He pulled that thing out of my dresser drawer and threw it out the window down the driveway. My mom and little brother were in the hallway witnessing all the drama unfold. That night, we all slept together in my parents' bedroom. The morning after, my parents knocked on the neighbor's door to see if they had heard about any strange stories about our house or anyone else's. The neighbors just responded, "Yeah, we've heard stories. There's a home down the street where the owner heard a piano playing every day at 4 p.m. The owners before you moved out of the house 2 months after they bought it. We had lived there for about 9 to 10 months. Needless to say, my parents put the house up for sale that day. No one bought it, so eventually we put it up for rent as it is close to the university. We still get stories today, and they're all very similar to our own. This next story takes place in August of 2019 on Kootenai Lake, British Columbia. I have read quite a few posts on this subreddit regarding their personal encounters, so I thought I'd do the same and share my own. This occurred 2 summers ago at our property in the Kootenai Lake Valley in southeastern British Columbia, Canada. The lake is quite large, and it runs north to south in what can be described as a very wide river. It's about 2 kilometers wide after checking the map. Either side of the lake are fairly steep mountain slopes, and from one side you can clearly see from the shore all the way up to the peaks. It was a clear day, and I wanted to test out a new pair of high magnification binoculars that I recently bought. They did an excellent job, and I was able to see people on the opposite side of the lake on the beach, albeit with some effort. After looking around through the binoculars for a couple of minutes, I scanned over a patch of forest high up on one of the slopes, where an area was clear-cut for logging. In the middle of this patch, I could see a black figure moving slowly up the slope, and it was then I wish I had a telescope. It was of comparable height to the young trees surrounding it, thus roughly 7 to 9 feet tall, and its dark color contrasted strikingly with the surrounding greenery. I was able to compare the scale and shape of the figure to one of those people on the beach, which confirmed my guesses about its size. I could tell it wasn't a black bear or any other large animal, as its walk was upright like a human and much too big. I watched it as it made its way up the slope and into the trees, where I couldn't track it any longer. The binoculars magnified just enough to make out these general details, but any more would require more substantial equipment. I couldn't describe the feeling at the time. There was no surprise. I just watched it calmly go about its business. Interestingly, on a map of Bigfoot sightings, the Kootenai Lake area was listed as having a couple. If anyone has any thoughts or questions, I'd be happy to hear them in the comments. Okay, so this is the last story of the day, and this one takes place in the summer of 2020, and it takes place in Chequamegon, Nicollet National Forest, Wisconsin. Hey everyone, so up until last year, I did not believe Bigfoot existed at all, not even a thought in my head. Last year, me and my brother went backpacking in Nicollet National Forest, just west of Eagle River, Wisconsin, on their Hidden Lakes Trail. We hiked a little ways in and stayed the first night with nothing happening at all, just a normal backpack trip. Then, on the second night, we were tired and didn't want to hike any further, so we left the trail and took a road down to a campsite, accessible from the road but not from the trail. During the day, there was a ton of wind, and we even hung some clothes up to dry, and they were dry in under an hour. Once night came along, the wind completely died down, and there was zero wind at all. We went to bed around 11. While we were trying to sleep, we heard the usual noises of the woods, including wolves howling. And then we started to hear what sounded like wood knocking. It was coming from different spots in the woods, and it was almost like there was time gaps between knocks as well. Some were on different pitches too, almost like they were made with different pieces of wood. Then I fell asleep and slept through the next part, but according to my brother, he woke up around 4 a.m. and what sounded like a massive tree fell just outside of our campground, to the point that he was worried it could have hit us. He said when the tree fell, all the squirrels in the area began to chirp and go crazy from all different directions, and they all stopped at the same time, and the forest was dead quiet again. The next morning, when we got up, he was telling me about it, and we were talking about the weird knocking sounds and couldn't figure out what it was. We ended up banging our own logs against trees to confirm that was 100% the noise we heard. On our drive home after our trip, we looked up as much information as we could on Sasquatch, and a lot of our stuff seemed to match up with other data. I'm still not convinced it was wolves howling that night after listening to the sounds of Bigfoot howls, but I'm not sure which one it was. Fast forward to this year. I ended up going back to the trail by myself this year to do a solo hike. On the second day, I decided to stay on the trail instead of hike on the road to the same campsite. When I got to the same section of trail nearest the campsite from the year before, there was a notice on the trail map sign saying there is a wet area that has been formed and have been there for the past several years to take a detour through a different trail. We haven't had much rain this year, so I thought it would be dried up, so I still continued on the trail to the wet area. When I got there, it was a literal swamp. This is also the area closest to the campsite the trail gets to, and would have been the direction most of the activity was coming from the year before. I attempted to get through the marsh, but I couldn't get very far until I decided to turn around and take the detour. As soon as I turned around, though, I heard that unforgettable tree knock that I heard the year before. I pretended like I didn't hear it and continued back to the detour and followed the detour through. The detour was about 3/4 of a mile and was the most isolated part of the trail with the thickest forest I have ever been in. The detour was about 3/4 of a mile and was the most isolated part of the trail with the thickest forest I have ever been in. During the 3/4 mile, I heard 4 more tree knocks, some with different pitches, like before, as if it were different logs making the noises. Once I left the detour and got out of that section of the trail, I never heard anything again, and I finished the trail the next morning with no problems. Do you think these were Bigfoot encounters? And do you think they were maybe stalking me after I tried to cross the marsh? I've read that Bigfoots prefer swampy terrains if they can access them, so it would make sense that that's where they would gather. Well, I hope you all enjoyed these 3 stories from Reddit today. I personally loved sharing them with you. So, as a gentle reminder, if these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit that like button on your way out and smash that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you all next week.